I am standing here on this beautiful Sunday in June in the borough of Bronx on City Island. Behind me is the infamous Hart Island. Now let me tell you about Hart Island. Hart Island recently has been in the news, and I've been meaning to do this story actually for 6 months on my list of stories I want to do here in New York. But it became news on Friday in the New York Times. Hart Island is the largest United States cemetery or mass grave in the United States. 1 million people are buried there. This is where the city buries their indigent, their homeless, stillborn children, just those who just don't have money or have no next of kin, unknown, dismembered body parts. That's where they go, and they get buried there by prisoners from Rikers Island. They take a ferry from way over there by Queens, crossing under the Whitestone Bridge, the Throgs Neck Bridge, and they come over here to Hart's Island, and they bury them in pine boxes, stacked 5 high, 20 in a row. Now, the only markings there are just these sticks and with these numbers. It's like a surveyed grid, but there is no proper cemetery. And it's been up for controversy that they want to transfer the ownership, the control of the island from the Department of Corrections to the New York City Parks Department, which I think is a good idea and has now made the news. And many relatives over the past few decades have been having the most difficult time to go and want to pay respects. You cannot pay respects to anyone there. It's not organized as such. It's hard enough to just get a visit to the island. And now they have a ferry service every once in a while since 2017. And you can get on it easier. So it is becoming more accessible. But let me tell you a little bit about the history. This island has had a very dark history in that in 1864 it was used as a training facility for the United States colored troops. African Americans who were training during the Civil War did it right here. This was it for them. This is where they put them, kept them isolated, segregated from whites, white people. And later on, in the 1800s, it started becoming that burial ground. And by the year, in the 1950s, 500,000 have been buried. Since 1950, 1 million have been buried there. Now, this place has been a jail, also like in association with Rikers. It's been a boys' reformatory. It's been a sanitarium for tuberculosis. It's been just about anything, you know, where you have to keep people away. One of the most horrific things, though, is that during the turn of the early 20th century, Rye Playland, which is over here, and Dobbs Ferry, these amusement parks, they barred African Americans from going to them. So these speculators wanted to build like a Negro Coney Island on Hart's Island. Eventually, it went through a lot of bureaucratic red tape, and the city then forbade it. It didn't happen. But, you know, what a thing. Negro Coney Island, they wanted to call it. So the dark history of this island is as such, and here it is in its background. It's all here. It's very small, and it can be seen from a cemetery, actually, is where I am on City Island. Which City Island is famous. It's beautiful. It's got, you know, lobster houses, seafood, and all that. And meanwhile, one of the dark blemishes of the United States and New York City is here. This is where they have to do with them. This is the potter's field. This is where they go. But I think it's a good idea that it does get transferred to the parks and that there's access and that they list who is buried there, do what they can, maybe begin DNA analysis, but that is going to be very costly and will take time. But there's only 10 more years of room to bury people here, so it's got to close eventually. So they need to start to make this transition and make it a place where you can pay respects as they organize and find out who is here or who they may be related to and such. So it is quite a project. There is the Hart Island Project, who has been run by Melinda Hunt all by herself, basically, to get this done over the past couple of decades. And I admire her for the work that she's done from what I've read. But this is, I knew this would be coming up as controversial. I live so close. I mean, New York City has all these islands. They're all interconnected. And just to think that Potter's Field, I mean, even very famous celebrities, if you look it up in the Wikipedia, who ended up destitute, just end up going here. And if, let's say you're a woman on welfare and you're in the hospital, you sign papers and you don't read small print. But if your child miscarriages or is stillborn, it says it in the city burial. City burial means they come here, and there's no marking, no knowledge, nothing. You know, I don't know how the record goes. It's not always there. And there also was a fire where they lost a lot of records. So this has quite a fascinating history. There's lots to it. You can read about it, and it is making the news. And I expect very soon that the current administrations will do something, especially since we have a time limit of only 10 years. And I think it's time to get it to the New York City Department of Parks.